Commander Olivia Russell was enjoying her morning coffee when the alert came through. The soft blue glow of her office view screen lit up with urgent reports. She took another sip before setting down her cup. "Commander, Zorn Kai ships have crossed the Orion boundary," said Lieutenant Peter Wright, his voice tight with tension. 17 vessels, heavily armed. They've broken the truce. Olivia nodded slowly. She glanced around at the 5 junior officers who had rushed into her office. Their faces showed fear, confusion, even anger. But Olivia just smiled. "Mom?" Wright asked, uncertain. "The truce has stood for 3,000 years. I know its history, Lieutenant," Olivia said. She stood up and walked to the large window overlooking Earth's orbital defense platform. "Sound the alert, level 3 only. And get me Admiral Gordon." The officers exchanged confused looks. Level 3 was for minor incidents. This was at least a level 1 emergency. "But Commander." "That will be all," Olivia said. When they had gone, she allowed herself a small laugh. The Zorn Kai had finally done it. After thousands of years of uneasy peace, they had convinced themselves they could win. 3,000 years ago, the first war between humans and the Zorn Kai Confederation had ended in what alien history books called mutual devastation. Human records simply called it a learning experience. The two species agreed to a truce, with the Orion arm as the boundary between their territories. For 3 millennia, both civilizations had grown and expanded in other directions, rarely communicating. The Zorn Kai remained proud and warlike, telling their children stories about how they had fought the humans to a standstill. Every few centuries, they would test the boundary, but never cross it. Until now. Olivia's screen lit up again. The wrinkled face of Admiral Jack Gordon appeared. Despite being over 200 years old, Gordon looked alert and calm. "They finally crossed the line, Jack," Olivia said. "About damn time," Gordon replied with a grin. "I was getting bored in retirement. Reports say they have some new weapon, something that drains energy from our systems." Gordon's laugh was loud and genuine. "Poor bastards don't know what's coming." 30 minutes later, Olivia stood before the United Earth Defense Council. 20 men and women sat around the circular table, representing every continent and major colony. Most looked worried. A few looked excited. "The Zorn Kai have deployed 17 warships across the boundary," Olivia explained. "Our sensor stations have detected a new type of energy weapon they've developed. They believe it will give them an advantage." General Maria Lopes frowned. "Do we activate the Sentinel protocol?" "Not yet," Olivia replied. "Let's see what they do first." The large screen on the wall displayed the Zorn Kai fleet moving toward the human outposts at the edge of the boundary. The alien ships were impressive. Sharp, angular vessels with glowing red engines. "Outpost Epsilon is reporting contact," said a communications officer. "The Zorn Kai are charging weapons." Everyone watched as the lead Zorn Kai ship fired on the small human outpost. A strange purple beam connected the two for several seconds. The lights on the outpost dimmed and then went out. "Epsilon is dark," the officer reported. "No communications." The room remained silent as they watched the same scene play out at Outpost Delta. And then Outpost Sigma. "Final transmission from Lieutenant Alan Murphy at Sigma," the officer said, typing on his console. "Audio only." A voice filled the room, calm and clear. "They're using some kind of energy drain. Systems failing, but they don't understand what." There was a soft chuckle, then silence. The council members looked at each other in confusion. But Admiral Gordon just smiled. "Get me a channel to the president," Olivia said. "And prepare my ship. We'll give the Zorn Kai exactly 3 hours to reconsider before we respond." "What about our people on those outposts?" asked Counselor Ben Garcia. "Oh, they're fine," Gordon said, standing up. "Better than fine. They've been waiting for this day for a long time. We all have." Olivia nodded. The Zorn Kai just broke a 3,000-year truce. and they have no idea that for 3,000 years, we've been preparing for exactly this moment. The Zorn Kai command ship glowed with celebration lights. Supreme Commander Vrex stood tall among his officers, his scaled skin shimmering under the bright lights of the bridge. His 4 eyes blinked in sequence as he watched the displays showing the 3 human outposts going dark. "The energy drain worked perfectly," said Science Director Krell. "Their shields failed in seconds." "And their weapons?" asked Vrex. "They had no time to fire," Krell replied. "The humans were unprepared. 3,000 years of peace has made them soft." Vrex clicked his jaw plates together, the Zorn Kai equivalent of a smile. Their scientists had worked for centuries to develop the energy drain weapon. The device targeted the specific energy signatures used by human technology. In all their tests, it had worked flawlessly. "Open a channel to their government," Vrex ordered. "It is time to announce the end of the truce." Back on Earth, President Nancy Kelly received the Zorn Kai transmission in the Oval Office. Olivia Russell and Admiral Gordon stood beside her as the alien face appeared on the screen. "People of Earth," Vrex said, his translator converting his clicks and hisses into English. "The Great Truce is over. We have destroyed 3 of your outposts without difficulty. Your technology is no match for ours. Surrender your border worlds, and we may consider a new agreement." President Kelly listened without expression. When the alien finished, she simply said, "We will need time to discuss your demands. You will have our answer in 3 hours." The transmission ended. Kelly turned to Olivia and Gordon. "Are our people safe?" she asked. Gordon nodded. "The outposts activated the Ghost Protocol the moment the energy weapons hit. All personnel are secure in the subsurface shelters. The Zorn Kai think they destroyed the outposts, but they only knocked out the dummy systems." "And our response?" Kelly asked. "Captain Samuel Lewis is already moving the 3rd Fleet into position," Olivia replied. "They'll be in range in 2 hours." President Kelly stood and looked out the window at the Washington Monument gleaming in the distance. "We need to address the United Nations Space Assembly," she said. "The public will need reassurance." An hour later, Kelly stood before the representatives of 142 Earth nations and 36 colony worlds. Her speech was broadcast across human space. "Fellow citizens of Earth and the colonies," she began. "Today, the Zorn Kai Confederation has broken the truce that has maintained peace for 3,000 years. They have attacked 3 of our outposts, believing they have destroyed them and killed our people." A murmur ran through the assembly. "I am pleased to report that no human lives were lost in these attacks. Our outposts were prepared, as we have been prepared for centuries." The murmur turned to surprised whispers. The Zorn Kai believe their new technology gives them an advantage. They believe that 3,000 years of peace has made us weak. Kelly paused, looking across the assembled representatives. "They are mistaken. While we regret the Zorn Kai decision, humanity has not stood still for 3 millennia. Perhaps it's time for a demonstration." In deep space, the supposedly destroyed outposts quietly came back to life. Hidden systems activated as personnel emerged from protected bunkers. Lieutenant Alan Murphy sat at his command console in Outpost Sigma, watching as his systems reconnected to the human defense network. "Status report," he said to his team. "The Zorn Kai fleet is still in the area," replied Ensign Frank Carter. "They're scanning for debris. They think we're dead." Murphy smiled. "Send the signal to Captain Lewis. Operation Mirror is active." Meanwhile, in Zorn Kai space, scouts reported strange findings to Supreme Commander Vrex. "The outposts are gone," reported Scout Leader Giles. "Not destroyed. Gone. There is no debris field, no radiation, nothing. They have vanished." Vrex hissed in confusion. "That is impossible. We saw them go dark." "Yes, Commander. But now there is nothing there, and our long-range sensors detect a small human force moving toward the border. Just 5 ships. 5 ships." Vrex laughed. "They send 5 ships against our fleet. This will be even easier than we thought." Science Director Krell looked less certain. Commander, something is not right. Our intelligence expected a panic, a large mobilization. The humans are too calm. Vrex dismissed the concern with a wave of his clawed hand. They are in shock. Their weakness will soon be exposed to the galaxy. Prepare the main fleet. We will crush their response and move on their colonies before they can react. Captain Samuel Lewis stood on the bridge of the UES Dauntless, watching the stars through the large viewing window. His 5 ships moved steadily toward the border where the Zorn Kai waited. The ships were small by military standards, each carrying only a crew of 50. Zorn Kai fleet detected, reported Navigation Officer Kelly Martinez. 17 ships in attack formation. And our other preparations? Asked Lewis. Communications Officer Paul Rivera smiled. Ready and waiting, Captain. Lewis nodded. For 3,000 years, the buffer zone between human and Zorn Kai space had appeared empty. The Zorn Kai believed it was simply neutral territory. They were wrong. Activate the defense platforms, Lewis ordered. Throughout the buffer zone, hundreds of small objects that had appeared to be nothing more than space debris suddenly came to life. Dormant for centuries, the automated defense platforms activated their engines and moved into position. On the Zorn Kai command ship, alarms began to sound. Supreme Commander called out the sensor operator. Unknown objects activating throughout the neutral zone. Vrex rushed to the screen. What objects? There is nothing in the buffer zone. There wasn't, said Science Director Krell, his voice shaking. But now there are hundreds of small platforms, all powering up. The humans are trying to trick us, Vrex said. Scan them. They cannot be powerful. Scans show minimal energy signatures, reported the sensor operator, but they are forming a pattern around our fleet. Vrex laughed. They try to trap us with weak defenses. Continue forward. The Zorn Kai fleet pushed ahead, approaching the 5 human ships that had entered the buffer zone. The human vessels made no attempt to hide or evade. The human ships are in range, reported Weapons Officer Drex. They have raised no shields. Shall we fire the energy drain weapon? Yes, ordered Vrex. Show them the power of our technology. The Zorn Kai ships fired their purple energy beams at the human vessels. The beams connected, pulsing with power, but nothing happened. The human ships continued forward without slowing. Why aren't they stopping? Vrex demanded. Krell checked the readings frantically. The energy drain is not working. Their ships are still at full power. On the UES Dauntless, Lewis watched calmly as the purple beams washed over his ship's hull. Energy drain attempting to connect, reported his science officer. The adaptive shielding is redirecting it harmlessly. Lewis nodded. Open a channel to the Zorn Kai command ship. When the connection was established, Lewis looked at the surprised face of the Zorn Kai commander. This is Captain Samuel Lewis of the United Earth Defense Force, he said calmly. Your energy drain technology was impressive. 2,000 years ago, when we first developed it. We've been ready for something like this since before your great-grandparents were born. Last chance to reconsider. Vrex hissed in anger. We will not be mocked by humans. All ships, conventional weapons, destroy them. But before the Zorn Kai could fire again, Lewis gave a simple command. Deploy the messenger. A single missile launched from the Dauntless, shooting toward the Zorn Kai fleet. The alien ships targeted it immediately, but before they could fire, the missile split into thousands of smaller objects that moved too quickly to track. Evade, shouted Vrex, but it was too late. The small objects flew past the Zorn Kai fleet without attacking and continued toward the nearest Zorn Kai colony world. They missed us, said Weapons Officer Drex in confusion. No, said Krell, studying the readings. They weren't aiming for us. The small objects entered the atmosphere of New Zorna, the closest Zorn Kai colony. The planet's defenses fired but could not hit the fast-moving targets. The colonists braced for explosions, for death. Instead, thousands of small holographic projectors landed safely across the planet's surface. They activated simultaneously, projecting human figures in parks, streets, and public squares. A human woman appeared in the central plaza of the colony's main city. She smiled warmly at the frightened Zorn Kai citizens. "Hello," said the hologram. "My name is Linda Brown from Earth. We thought it was time we had a proper chat about the last 3,000 years of human development. Did you know we solved the problem of energy drain weapons in our early space age? Let me show you what else we've been up to while keeping the peace." Across the colony, similar holograms began cheerful explanations of human technology, showing images of vast space stations, terraformed worlds, and ships that could travel between stars in days. Dr. Vera Sanchez walked quickly through the hallways of Earth Defense Headquarters. At 63, she was Earth's leading expert on Zorn Kai culture and behavior. 2 armed guards escorted her to a large conference room, where Commander Russell and Admiral Gordon waited. "Thank you for coming so quickly, Doctor," Olivia said, gesturing to an empty chair. "I studied the Zorn Kai my entire career," Vera replied. "I always knew this day would come." Admiral Gordon pushed a tablet toward her. "We need to understand why they chose now to break the truce. What changed?" Vera studied the information on the screen. The Zorn Kai have a cultural obsession with proving themselves. For 3,000 years, they'd been telling themselves that the truce was a sign of mutual respect, that we feared them as much as they feared us. "But we never feared them," Olivia said. "Exactly." Vera set down the tablet. "That's the problem." As they watched us expand in other directions, explore other parts of the galaxy, they began to suspect the truth, that we kept the peace not out of fear, but out of convenience. Gordon nodded slowly, and that was unacceptable to them. To the Zorn Kai, being ignored is worse than being hated, Vera explained. They developed this energy weapon and convinced themselves it was the key to finally proving their superiority. In Zorn Kai space, panic spread through the scientific community. Teams of researchers worked frantically to understand what had gone wrong with their weapon. "It should have worked," shouted Chief Scientist Malk, throwing a datapad across the laboratory. "The energy drain was perfect in all our tests." His assistant, Jella, studied the readings from the failed attack. "According to this data, the humans redirected the energy. But that should be impossible. Unless..." "Unless what?" Malk demanded. "Unless they've known about this technology for a very long time," Jella said quietly. "Long enough to develop countermeasures." Malk slowly sat down. "Check the historical records. Find anything about human energy technology from the past 3,000 years. Hours later, Jella returned, her scales pale with shock. "I found something. A human research paper from over 2,000 years ago. It mentions energy drain weapons as an interesting but ultimately limited approach to combat. They solved this problem 20 centuries ago." On the human diplomatic vessel UES Harmony, Dr. Vera Sanchez prepared for the upcoming meeting with the Zorn Kai Leadership Council. Beside her stood retired General Ethan Cole, his tall frame still straight despite his advanced age. "Are you nervous, General?" Vera asked. "Not at all," Cole replied with a smile. "I've been waiting a long time for this meeting. The Zorn Kai requested to speak with our military leadership. They were very specific about wanting to meet veterans of past conflicts," Vera said. Cole nodded. "They're about to get more than they bargained for." A Harmony docked at the neutral station where the meeting would take place. Vera and Cole were escorted to a large conference room, where 5 Zorn Kai leaders waited. The aliens rose to their feet as the humans entered. "I am High Commander Zex," said the tallest Zorn Kai. "We expected your current military leaders." "I am Dr. Vera Sanchez, xenoanthropologist," Vera replied. "And this is General Ethan Cole." The Zorn Kai stared at Cole. "Which conflict are you a veteran of, General?" asked Zex. Cole smiled. "The first one. I commanded the 3rd Fleet during the war that led to our truce, 3,000 years ago." The room fell silent. The Zorn Kai looked at each other in shock. "That is impossible," said Zex finally. "No living being could survive so long." "Actually, human medical technology allowed us to extend our lifespans considerably," Cole explained calmly. "I'm not even our oldest citizen. We developed this technology not for war, but for exploration. We wanted our people to live long enough to see the stars. You kept this from us deliberately," Zex accused. "Not at all," Vera said. "We've published all our medical advancements openly. Your leaders chose not to look. You were too focused on weapons development to notice our progress in other areas." Cole stepped forward. "We didn't prepare for war all this time. We simply removed its necessity from our development. War became obsolete for us, but we kept the peace because we respected your culture's need to feel like our equals." The Zorn Kai delegation recoiled as if struck. In their culture, there was no greater insult than to be pitied. "You will regret your arrogance," Zex hissed. "Our main fleet approaches Earth even now." Admiral Jack Gordon stood on the bridge of the UES Resilient, watching the stars. Earth glowed blue and green behind him. Reports showed the Zorn Kai invasion fleet approaching, 500 warships strong. "They really think they can take Earth," Gordon said, shaking his head. His second-in-command, Captain Judy Chen, studied the tactical display. "The Zorn Kai fleet will arrive in 30 minutes. Should we call in the rest of our ships?" "No need," Gordon replied. "The Resilient will handle this." The bridge crew exchanged glances. The Resilient was a powerful ship, but it was just one vessel against 500. "Admiral," said Communications Officer Diane Foster, "we're receiving transmissions from civilian stations. People are worried." Gordon nodded. "Open a channel on all frequencies, please." Foster tapped her console. "Your lives, sir." Gordon cleared his throat. "This is Admiral Jack Gordon of the Earth Defense Force. To all human stations and ships in the area, remain calm. To any Zorn Kai listening. For those watching, this will be educational. For those participating, we apologize for the inconvenience." The Resilient moved forward alone, positioning itself between Earth and the approaching Zorn Kai fleet. Its engines glowed softly against the blackness of space. On the lead Zorn Kai battleship, Supreme Commander Vrex watched the single human vessel with disbelief. "They send one ship against our entire fleet?" he asked. "Do they think we will be merciful if they surrender?" "Perhaps it is a trick," suggested his advisor Threll. "Scans show no other human vessels nearby, but they could be hiding." "It doesn't matter," Vrex said. "No technology could stand against 500 ships. Prepare all weapons." The Zorn Kai fleet emerged from faster-than-light travel in perfect formation, their weapons charged and ready. 500 warships against a single human defender. Admiral Gordon watched them arrive. "Quite impressive," he said. "Activate the stillness protocol." Captain Chen entered a series of commands into her console. "Stillness protocol active, sir." For a moment, nothing seemed to happen. Then, across space, the Zorn Kai fleet simply stopped. Every ship hung motionless, their lights still on but their engines no longer burning. No weapons fired. No communications transmitted. "All Zorn Kai ships have been neutralized," reported the tactical officer. "Systems are intact but inactive. Life support remains functional." Gordon nodded. "Take us in. I think it's time for a personal conversation with Supreme Commander Vrex." The Resilient moved between the frozen Zorn Kai ships. Some were massive battleships 10 times its size, but they hung in space like sculptures, unable to move or fight. On the Zorn Kai command ship, panic spread through the crew. Nothing responded to their controls. Engines, weapons, even doors had stopped working. Only life support and internal communications remained active. "What is happening?" Vrex demanded, hitting controls that did nothing. "How are they doing this?" A soft chime sounded, and the bridge doors opened. Admiral Gordon walked in alone, wearing a standard uniform with no visible weapons. The Zorn Kai stared in shock. "How did you get on our ship?" Vrex asked. "I walked," Gordon replied simply. "Your security systems are temporarily offline, along with everything else." "What have you done to our fleet?" Gordon smiled. "We call it the Stillness Protocol. It selectively targets non-human technology and places it in a state of temporary suspension. No damage, completely reversible." "Impossible," whispered Science Director Krell. "Such technology would require energy levels beyond anything we can imagine." "We developed it about 1,500 years ago," Gordon said. "Originally for archaeological purposes, to safely study ancient alien ruins without disturbing them." Gordon pulled a small device from his pocket and placed it on the command console. "This contains the complete history of human technological development since our truce began. You should review it. You'll find that we could have destroyed the Zorn Kai at any point during the last 3,000 years. Vrex's scales darkened with rage. "Why show us this? To humiliate us?" "No," Gordon said, his voice gentler now. "To help you understand. We kept the peace not because we needed it, but because we hoped that eventually you would join us in exploring the galaxy rather than trying to conquer it." Gordon turned to leave, then paused at the door. "The stillness effect will wear off in 6 hours. That should give you enough time to look through that data and reconsider your options. By the way, we have 17 more fleets just like yours out there exploring beyond your borders. The universe is much bigger and more interesting than this old conflict." As Gordon left the bridge, Vrex slowly reached for the device, his hand trembling slightly. News spread quickly through Zorn Kai space. Their great invasion fleet had been stopped by a single human ship. The information device Admiral Gordon left behind was copied and shared across Zorn Kai networks, despite attempts by military leaders to contain it. Supreme Commander Vrex faced the High Council, 14 elderly Zorn Kai, who rarely left their sacred chamber on the homeworld. "The humans have made us look weak," said Council Elder Grax. "This is unacceptable. They have technology we cannot match," Vrex replied, his voice tired. "The device they gave us shows developments we never imagined possible." "It could be lies," suggested another council member. "Human propaganda." Science Director Krell stepped forward. "I have verified many of the technologies shown in the human data. They are real. The humans have spent 3,000 years developing science we ignored because we were too focused on weapons." In a small meeting room nearby, young Sub-Commander Kraz met secretly with 20 junior officers. They had all reviewed the human data. "Our leaders have been lying to us for generations," Kraz said. "The humans never saw us as equals. They were waiting for us to grow up." "What should we do?" asked one of the officers. "The High Council will never admit this truth." "We need to learn more," Kraz replied. "About the humans, about ourselves, about why we've been stuck in this warrior mindset for thousands of years while they moved forward." Meanwhile, Earth's ambassador Lisa Wong arrived at the Zorn Kai homeworld. Instead of bringing soldiers or politicians, her ship carried teachers, artists, and engineers. The Zorn Kai media covered her arrival with a mixture of fear and curiosity. "We come in peace," Wong said to the cameras as she stepped off her ship. "Not to conquer or control, but to share what we've learned over the centuries." The Zorn Kai authorities allowed the humans limited access to their capital city. They expected spies or soldiers in disguise. Instead, they found people eager to teach and learn. Human engineer Howard Martinez set up a small demonstration in a public square. Within hours, a crowd of young Zorn Kai gathered to watch him create clean water from air using a device smaller than his hand. "This technology is 2,000 years old for us," Martinez explained to the amazed onlookers. "We've brought the plans as a gift. Your world has dry regions that could use this." In the main scientific institute, human Captain Heather Davis and her team were invited to observe Zorn Kai research. The alien scientists showed her their most advanced projects, expecting to impress her. Instead, Davis gently pointed out solutions to problems that had stumped them for decades. This energy conversion issue, Davis said, looking at a complex equation on a display screen. We solved it about 1800 years ago. The issue is in your approach to plasma containment. She drew a simple diagram that made the Zorn Kai scientists stare in shock. What they had thought was impossibly complex suddenly seemed obvious. "Why are you showing us this?" asked lead researcher Vryn. "This could be used for weapons." Davis smiled. "Or for clean energy production, or medical equipment, or faster ships. Technology itself isn't good or bad. It's how you choose to use it." In a private meeting with Ambassador Wong, Sub-Commander Kraz revealed the growing movement among younger Zorn Kai. "We've been taught that war is our greatest cultural achievement," Kraz said. "But your people show us a different path. Many of us want to learn." Wong nodded. "We've been expanding beyond the borders of our truce for thousands of years. What you thought was human territory is just a small fraction of where we've traveled." "You never needed the truce," Kraz said, realization dawning. "You kept it for our benefit." "Peace is always better than war," Wong replied. "But it's hard to have true peace with someone who only respects strength. We've been waiting for your people to realize there are other things to respect." Later that evening, Kraz stood with a group of young Zorn Kai scientists, watching a human educational presentation about the galaxies beyond their known space. The images showed thousands of stars humans had visited, species they had met, worlds they had helped. "All this time," whispered one of the scientists, "we thought we were containing them with the truce. But they were out there, exploring everything but our small corner of space." Kraz nodded slowly. "They weren't ignoring us. They were giving us time to grow up." For the first time in 3,000 years, a Zorn Kai delegation prepared to visit Earth. 5 high-ranking officials, led by Sub-Commander Kraz, boarded a transport vessel. The old guard of the High Council had reluctantly agreed to the visit, hoping to learn more about human defenses. "Remember," said Elder Krax before they departed, "observe everything. Look for weaknesses. The humans cannot be as powerful as they claim." Kraz nodded, but he had his own plans. The young officer had spent days reviewing the human data files. He was more interested in their society than their weapons. The journey to Earth took 3 days. As they approached the blue planet, the Zorn Kai were surprised to find no defensive platforms, no weapon arrays pointing at their ship. "Where are their defenses?" asked Security Chief Ven. "Any species would protect their homeworld." "Perhaps they are hidden," suggested another delegate. Their ship was guided into Earth's orbit, then down to a landing pad in a place called Colorado. As they exited their vessel, the Zorn Kai braced themselves for the sight of a fortress world. Instead, they saw rolling green hills, clean cities sprawling in the distance, and people going about their lives peacefully. Children played in parks visible from the landing area. No weapons were in sight. "Welcome to Earth," said Ambassador Wong, greeting them at the bottom of the ramp. "We hope your stay will be pleasant and informative." The Zorn Kai were given comfortable quarters and freedom to move about with human guides. Security Chief Ven kept searching for hidden weapons or defenses, but found none. On the second day, they visited a school where teacher Greg Wilson was giving a lesson to children about space exploration. "And who can tell me about the Zorn Kai?" Wilson asked his class of 8-year-olds. A small boy raised his hand. "They're the neighbors we haven't properly met yet." The children noticed the Zorn Kai visitors and ran over excitedly, asking questions about their scales and eyes. The aliens stood frozen in shock at being approached so fearlessly by young humans. "In our culture," Kraz said later to Ambassador Wong, "children are kept away from other species. They are taught to fear outsiders." Wong nodded. "Fear is taught, not born. Our children learn about the many species we've encountered. We hope they will someday work alongside them." The delegation visited a museum next, where the history of human space exploration was displayed. One small section covered the ancient war with the Zorn Kai and the subsequent truce. "This is all," asked Ven, looking at the modest exhibit. In our museums, the war fills entire buildings. It was just one brief chapter in our history, explained their guide. Important, yes, but not defining. Later that day, they met with Howard Martinez, the terraforming engineer they had seen on their homeworld. He showed them images of a planet in Zorn Kai space. "This is Velix IV," Martinez said, "an uninhabited world in your territory." "Yes," said Kraz. "It was devastated by asteroids centuries ago. Now it is dead." Martinez smiled and showed new images. Parts of the planet were green and blue. "We've been quietly fixing the damage for the last 400 years, Martinez explained, using automated systems to restore the atmosphere and plant life. It should be habitable again within another century. "You've been terraforming our planets?" asked Ven, alarmed. "Without permission. Not changing them," Martinez clarified. "Healing them. Your ancestors caused ecological damage they didn't understand. We've been repairing it, hoping someday your people would be ready to expand for reasons beyond conquest." That evening, Dr. Vera Sanchez invited the delegation to her home for dinner. The Zorn Kai were surprised by this informal approach to diplomacy. "In our culture, diplomacy happens in grand halls with guards present," Kraz noted. "Sometimes the best understanding comes from simple conversation," Vera replied, serving them food prepared to suit their biology. During dinner, Kraz asked the question that had been bothering him. "When we broke the truce, humans laughed. Not in mockery, I think. Why?" Vera smiled. Laughter can come from many emotions. In this case, it was partly relief that the waiting was over, partly affection for your predictability, and partly genuine amusement. Amusement? Yes. Think of how a parent feels when a child finally decides they're grown up enough to challenge them. There's a certain fondness in that moment. "We've been watching your civilization for 3,000 years, hoping you would eventually join us as partners in the galaxy rather than adversaries." Kraz looked out the window at the peaceful Earth night. "Some of our youth are already asking to study at human universities. There is a hunger for something beyond war." 1 year after the Zorn Kai broke the ancient truce, a new structure floated in space at the exact spot where the boundary once stood. The joint human Zorn Kai science outpost, Harmony, was neither human nor Zorn Kai in design, but something new, a blend of both cultures. Inside the main observation deck, Captain Samuel Lewis stood beside former Zorn Kai Sub-Commander Kraz, now appointed as the first Zorn Kai ambassador for galactic relations. Both watched as ships from both species moved freely across what was once a forbidden border. "If you had told me a year ago that I would be standing here with you as an ally, I would have thought you were insane," Kraz said. Lewis smiled. "The universe has a sense of humor. Speaking of which, our mission is ready. Are you prepared to make history again?" Kraz's scales rippled with excitement, the Zorn Kai equivalent of a smile. "The first joint contact mission. Absolutely." The UES Discovery, a sleek exploration vessel with a mixed crew of humans and Zorn Kai, prepared for departure. Its mission: first contact with a newly discovered intelligent species in the Sagittarius Arm. For the first time, humans would not make first contact alone but would share the experience with their former enemies. On Earth, President Nancy Kelly welcomed the Zorn Kai High Speaker to the United Nations building in New York. The elderly Zorn Kai had replaced the High Council after a peaceful transition of power. Young Zorn Kai had demanded change, inspired by what they learned from humans. "Today we sign not just a renewed peace," Kelly said to the assembled delegates from across human space and Zorn Kai territories, "but an alliance that looks toward the future." The High Speaker's voice was firm despite his age. "For 3,000 years, we defined ourselves by our readiness for war. Today, we choose to define ourselves by our readiness for discovery." They signed the new treaty with representatives from 20 other spacefaring species as witnesses. The signing was broadcast across 2 civilizations. At the Zorn Kai Academy of Science, 200 young Zorn Kai studied alongside human teachers. What was once unthinkable had become routine in just 1 year. In the main hall, a statue of Admiral Gordon stood beside one of Sub-Commander Kraz, commemorating the moment that changed everything. In a quiet garden on Earth, Commander Olivia Russell found Admiral Gordon watching the sunset. The old admiral had finally accepted retirement after the successful integration of human and Zorn Kai defense forces. "Beautiful evening," Olivia said, sitting beside him. Gordon nodded. "The best kind. Peaceful." "I've been meaning to ask you something," Olivia said after a moment. "What would have happened if they hadn't backed down? If the Zorn Kai had continued fighting after you demonstrated the stillness protocol?" Gordon took a sip from his cup and smiled. "The same thing that happened anyway. They joined us. The only difference would have been the path there." He gestured toward the sky where stars were beginning to appear. "We knew 3,000 years ago that the Zorn Kai would eventually come around. Every species reaches that point where they have to choose between endless conflict or growth. We just gave them time to make the choice themselves." From their garden bench, they could see the spaceport in the distance. The exploration vessel Horizon was preparing for launch, its crew visible as small figures boarding the ship, humans and Zorn Kai working side by side. "Look at that," Gordon said. 3,000 years ago, we learned that conquering is temporary, but laughter is contagious. Sometimes the strongest move in the game is to show others there's no need to play it anymore." The ship's lights came on as it rose slowly from the ground. Its hull gleamed in the fading sunlight, and even from a distance, they could read its mission statement painted along the side. To explore, to learn, to grow, to laugh. The vessel climbed higher, becoming a bright point of light against the darkening sky, carrying the future of two species who had once been enemies. "You know what the best part is," Gordon said as they watched the ship disappear into the stars. "There are thousands more species out there waiting to meet us. Some will be friendly, some won't. But they'll all learn eventually." "Learn what?" asked Olivia. Gordon's eyes twinkled with the same laughter that had puzzled the Zorn Kai a year before. "That the universe is too big and too fascinating to waste time fighting when we could be exploring it together."